Has the newest Spider-Man, Ben Reilly, finally met his match in the likes of the Queen Goblin? Well, let's hop into the pages of Amazing Spider-Man issue number 88 and find out together, shall we? So then, in a fun change of perspective, we actually spend a good chunk of this issue in the POV of Maxine Danger, who, as we learn in this issue, may be the head of Beyond's superhero development project. But despite what I had been believing, she doesn't actually run the whole company. She actually answers to a shadowy board group, one that is uber pissed at her right now over Janie managing to escape with a data drive filled with some of their most sensitive and damning information. Maxine vows to get it all back, but to do so, she's going to get a little creative. She says that she's going to be enacting something called the Halifax Protocol, and I don't actually believe it has anything to do with Lord Tundra and Jesus, no. That is a very specific Canadian joke, thank you all for bearing with me. No, Maxine's real plan seems to be creating a full-blown supervillain, a new heir to the Goblin line called the Queen Goblin, not to be confused with the Goblin Queen, which is a whole other thing. How did they create this new thing so quickly? Well, that's the amazing part. Remember at the end of Nick Spencer's Spider-Man run, the Sin Eater had divorced a bunch of villains from their evil? Well, one of those people was Norman Osborn, and the sins were never actually returned to him by the end of the series. That's because Beyond, using their amazing science, had managed to contain the sins and put it in a new package. Wow, round of applause for picking up a hanging plot thread and actually use it to explain the creation of an all-new villain in just a couple pages. Now, as Maxine continues to clean house, we see that Marcus, Ben's handler, is currently her prisoner right now. He doesn't know what the company is going to do to him, but he knows it probably isn't going to be good. He claims that he tried to stop Janie, but that he was threatened, and now that he realizes Maxine cares so much about this drive that she's willing to kill and imprison her own employees, surely he's working for the bad guys now, right? If nothing else, Marcus does actually see fit to ask what exactly the Halifax protocols are. Well, get this, they're a reference to the old Siege storyline. You see, Mr. Halifax was actually a rich old dude who owned a mansion over in Broxton, Ohio, one that got destroyed by Sentry and Thor fighting. Here's the thing though, the mansion was filled with a bunch of dead bodies that the authorities didn't bother to actually ask Halifax about, figuring, meh, who cares how the bodies got there, superheroes were fighting, right? And that, at the end of the day, is what the Beyond Corporation has always really been after. Oh sure, having an in-house spokesmodel to sign autographs and do charity events as a superhero is great, but to have your own line of designer villains too, to create plausible deniability in any sort of corrupt corporate setting, now that's real power. Now what exactly happened to Janie once she went on the run? Well, she asked for help from Mary Jane in setting up a meeting with Glory Grant of the Daily Bugle. The plan is to out all of Beyond's evil doing via the media, which is going to be a lot easier said than done considering now there's a brand new supervillain gunning for them, as well as a freshly brainwashed and dried Ben Reilly who has had his mind tampered with one too many times and forgot all about with great power comes great responsibility. Hell, even just the regular workaday schmucks at Beyond begin to realize that Ben has truly been changed. He's not the same guy. We actually get treated to a fairly sweet little one-on-one conversation between Mary Jane and Janie. Janie talks about how she spent a lot of her life jealous of what Mary Jane and Peter had together. From the outside looking in, it was like they always had it so easy, while meanwhile Janie always felt the universe was trying to keep her and Ben apart, like it didn't like either of them, and man, if that ain't a meta piece of commentary, I don't know what is. It's at that point the new Queen Goblin ends up attacking the paper. We also learn her true identity. It seems that Queen Goblin is none other than Dr. Ashley Kafka. I must admit, that's actually pretty clever of Maxine Danger killing two birds with one stone here. Instead of keeping Kafka hostage, she's opted to weaponize her against her enemies. It's also kind of tragic too, as Kafka was Ben's fellow clone and one of the only people who actively seemed interested in trying to help him. Ben ultimately makes the scene and we get treated to a classic Spider versus Goblin fight. What does Queen Goblin bring that her predecessors didn't? Well, for starters, she has a double-sided flaming pumpkin mace, as well as a glider that can split apart into smaller parts to attack Spider-Man from different angles. Say what you want about the Beyond Corporation, but they don't skimp, do they? Ben manages to defeat Queen Goblin, but unfortunately the drive gets smashed in their battle. Also, here Ben shows just how far he's gone by grabbing Janie and taking her back to Beyond. As far as he's concerned, his corporately mandated job is done and he doesn't have to break a sweat or do anything else to try and save Mary Jane, who is left behind and at the mercy of Queen Goblin. And so that was Amazing Spider-Man issue number 88, everybody, and I gotta say, just when I thought this Beyond series was starting to lose some steam, they pick back up again in a number of very interesting ways. For the longest time, and I think we can all agree, we thought this series was going to inevitably end with a Ben versus Peter fight for the mantle of Spider-Man, but now it looks like Peter might actually need to get well so he can save Ben from Beyond. Also, while I don't think anyone was necessarily clamoring for another addition to the Goblin family line, this whole Ashley Kafka reveal is just different and just interesting enough to keep me invested. Being a clone that broke bad when they absorbed the sins of Norman Osborn, the original Green Goblin, to become the ultimate arch nemesis of Ben Reilly's new clone Spider-Man run is certainly something. Overall, I'd feel comfortable giving this one another 7.5 out of 10. It was pretty good, and I do want to know where things go from here.
Hey there everyone, it's your old pal Cave Jewel, and if you're seeing me right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, which I am very appreciative of. It really helps drive engagement and retention and all that other good YouTube stuff. So does liking and commenting. Wink wink. If you like my content too, you should check out my Patreon page. We just redid all the tiers, so there's a ton of great rewards. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, and well, it would just really help me out. It's never expected, but always appreciated. So until next time everyone, I've been Cape Joel, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.